Hello and welcome to the Heavy Mental Podcast, a podcast where you can expect to hear candid chatter about the things that matter, from mental health to wellness, personal growth and beyond. I'm your host, Rhys Owen King, and today I am joined by my part-time co-host and wonderful wife, vegan kitchen experimenter extraordinaire.
Oh, Layla King. I thought you were going to say part-time wife at the beginning. I was like, whoa. Hang on, Sonny Jim.
Let's get into it.
Okay, you can't change the world, but you can change yourself. You change yourself, then you can offer that outwardly. Like, I learn the knowledge, then I can offer the knowledge outwardly. So it's like, you cannot fix everything external, but you can fix your own shit. And by doing that, you just elevate into a whole different frequency and you're somewhere else.
In this episode, Layla and I chat to Hannah Pixie Snowdon. Hannah is an artist who's creating an eco-community in what she lovingly refers to as the Land of Dreams, aka Nepal. In this land, Hannah and the close-knit group of people around her are building a magical, self-sustaining haven and learning centre that aims to teach regenerative culture and natural living solutions for the immediate and global community. We proper enjoyed this chat, didn't we?
Yeah, it was so nice. I've been friends with Hannah for probably about 5 or 6 years, but distant friends. We hardly ever see each other, but when we do, excuse me, frog in my throat, but when we do, it's amazing. And chatting to her was like I'd just seen her yesterday. And we were so inspired by the end of this conversation, weren't we?
Yeah, we were proper...
like ran out into the garden. We were like, right, we're not going to buy a house, change of plan. We're going to buy land and we're just going to live off it.
Yeah, I was like, I can't do a fucking ounce of building or DIY. I can't even put a shelf up, ashamedly. And I was like, I'm going to build an eco lodge in mid Wales. And like, we're going to have a farm patch. We're going to grow our own vegetables. We're going to have...
we're going to rescue loads of animals.
Yeah, have
this is
Paul
still
the pig,
dream.
Paul the pig.
I would say this has always been my dream. I've just managed to lure Rhys into it with me after this conversation with Hannah.
Yeah, I think I was... one thing I'm finding in particular, and I've spoken about this the last few weeks to you, is that I'm craving nature.
Yeah.
And like I've said about running through the woods, I have this image of me just like running through woodland and up hills and mountains.
Do you think that's because nature is limited at the moment? You're limited to one dose a day?
Yeah, that could very well be.
Because of lockdown, in case you're listening to this after lockdown is over. I'm
limited to... Well, I can't access any areas of considerable nature in my immediate surroundings. So it's like, yeah, it probably is to do with that. I'm dreaming of nature. High on nature. But yeah, it was the first time I chatted to Hannah and met her. And yeah.
Loser.
And she's absolutely lovely. She was a proper beam of light, I think is a good way to describe her.
We had a bit of a nightmare with the audio mind, didn't we?
And yeah, that reminds me, there's a weird moment about halfway through the episode when Hannah starts talking about how the internet can be bad for us, and the internet thinks, not on my watch, and starts to play up. As Hannah notes, there is some weird synchronicity that goes on if we're present to pick up on it.
Yeah.
You were going to say so.
You covered it.
Okay.
Yeah, we went through phases in the beginning of sounding like robots because of the audio. Yeah, it was odd, and we had to turn off our video in the end because it was too much for the little guest house in Nepal, the Wi-Fi there that Hannah was using. But yeah, it was an amazing chat, and it was one of my favourites. It was so inspiring, and I might be a bit biased because she's my mate, but it was lush.
Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved chatting to Hannah. And in terms of additional topics, we talk reconnecting with your inner child, going back to nature, letting go of what doesn't serve you, the power of community, the importance of who you surround yourself with, finding fulfilling work, change, self-limiting beliefs, veganism, the mind-body-soul connection, the divine feminine, focusing on your why, and ridding yourself of the scarcity mindset. So, without further ado, here's Layla and I's conversation with the lovely Hannah Pixie Snowdon.
So,
Amazing.
Hannah, thank you so much for agreeing
you
to
very
be on
much.
this. It's so nice to hear your little voice. I wish I could see you, but our audio isn't working. And yeah, sorry, our video isn't working. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of, if we could start, like, how did you come to be where you are now? Because you're living on the land of dreams and you're building everything like with a community around you with your hands, and that's quite a stark contrast to where you grew up and life before. Like, where did this begin?
Where did it begin, Beck? First of all, so lovely to catch up with you both. And thank you for chatting to me, my babe. And yeah, my life, to be totally honest, couldn't be more different to when I last saw you. Which weren't that long ago, were it? I think maybe a couple of years or something.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah, I think ultimately what it's been is a really just slow unraveling, to be honest, babe. Of everything that no longer served me, and all the stuff that we kind of know deep down doesn't serve us, but it doesn't just fall away in a day, you know. It's like years and years of social conditioning, and just like we get a lot of bullshit placed upon us by the societal system that we're ultimately brought up in, like the patriarchal system in general, like that obviously runs through all areas of our lives, really, like whether it be our romantic relationships or our work lives, or like just our like inter and social relationships are also, they're really fucked up, I think, to be honest. And particularly in the West, where there's such a focus on the material, and mind body soul connection is just like totally gone, really. Or there's been an attempt to totally eradicate that connection anyway. These are all things that we can see now with the, you know, we know that sort of the food that we eat has been poisoned for years, hence you know, people like us who choose more plant-based holistic diets. We know the sort of the air around us has been poisoned, and we know that the sort of our minds, it sounds really, really dark, but our minds have been poisoned as well in turn with just all the other shit that we consume growing up, whether it be the kids shows or I don't know, you know, like all of it, just generational pain patterns that are passed down from our parents, you know, like it's nature nurture, right? So we're just ultimately products of our environments. And it got to the point for me where I was like, what was I before all of this shit was just placed on me? Like, what did I want? Like, what does that inner child always want, you know? Like, what was the desire there before everything else came in, and then ego grew, and then, you know, was sort of enabled by the society that we live in. And yet ultimately all that we want to do is be feral little creatures running around on the earth, like, and for ourselves, looking after ourselves, and just, you know, going back to more natural systems. Like, all that really is important is the energy that we share and what we create as a result of that. So it's like the relationships that we have with ourselves, with our environments, and with the people around us is paramount. It's absolutely paramount. But it's taken like physically removing myself from the things that I know don't serve me to get there, because everything that doesn't serve us is also super duper addictive. So whether it be sugar, which we know is like in all the food that we eat pretty much, that's packaged as like products in the West, 10 times more addictive than opiates, you know what I mean? And we're giving it to kids. Whether it be the internet and like the literal electromagnetic frequencies that are given off by the technological devices that we use that are disrupting our systems. And I don't know, whether it be just like all the other distractions that we fill ourselves with. It just like I had to go back to nature. I had to do it, and I had to make that bit of an into the wild leap, I think, to like crack a few things.
It's such a brave thing to have done. It's something that I kind of like fantasize about, but I just don't know if I'm there yet to do it.
I think, you know what, we're never there. You just have to make the leap, because it's like with all these things, we know what we're doing, like inherently the nature, it holds us. We are nature herself, you know. So it's like, it's not that hard to like fend for ourselves ultimately, you know. It's like there's enough people in the world that are still living in this way. That's what I realized as well when I moved out here, is like these, especially at this time now, during this pandemic. It's more obvious to me than ever how in the West, the system that's been set up, it's just designed to turn us into blob humans, just like incapable blob humans that are dependent on something external. Like, these people in Nepal have been through worse than this. They've been through earthquakes and God knows what else, and they've had to start again like so many times.
Yeah.
And they're fucking resilient, and they're resilient because we are resilient as humans, and we just forget that. But it's ultimately so easy to grow your own food, especially in a place like this where the weather is just like, you throw a seed out and then 3 days later something sprouts up, you know. It's like you can't stop the nature, and ultimately that you can't stop nature anyway. Like, she wants to thrive. So even when the weather's not that amazing and this, that, and the third, like, we can still survive. We are such resilient creatures. We can survive off weeds, we can survive off plants. We don't need to. We can have, you know, we have everything we need. Like, we literally have everything that we need. And I've really been reminded of that being here, where people don't seemingly have as much in a technological sense, but my God, are their lives richer, and are they healthier, and are they happier a lot of the time? Like, it's just a whole different pace of life, I must admit.
Did you find that there was a resistance, that you were kind of being called to this way of living, but your ego wasn't ready to get there yet?
I think what it was for me, to be honest, is that it was more for me, everybody telling me that it was stupid. I was surrounded by people before that make you feel stupid for having dreams like that, to be honest. And ultimately, it's the most natural thing to want to strip away all the bullshit. It's just like the most natural thing to us, really, to want to just like take off all these layers of conditioning and just relax back into the nature, when you've only got to worry about, you know, putting your love into the ground around you, and then that in turn just like gives you everything you need. And you don't need a lot of space, and you don't need a lot, and it's like the most fulfilling work ever. But I think when you're surrounded by people who are very stuck in a certain system, because they've based their entire lives to that point on money, power, status, and just, you know, being a somebody, ultimately, whatever the fuck that means in this world, you're going to get resistance when you turn around and go, yeah, but this is cool, but fuck all this noise. Let's go camping. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think, like, after a while, when you realize that there's nothing sort of external that will fill that void, because we've been so far removed from our truest natures, the only option is to humbly go back to what we know really does serve us. And it does take some humility and whatever else, but I don't know, I just think it's like the easiest pill to swallow for me, because it's so fucking obvious. This is like better for us. I've never felt better, you know, like I feel amazing. I've never been more uncertain about how every single day is going to look. But I've never felt more confident in my ability just to continue as well, to continue to like progress as a human. When you got guys like Wim Hof saying, okay, I'm taking 30 people up Kilimanjaro, breath by breath, you know what I mean, in a day. It's all step by step. It's all step by step. It is literally about that. It is about these tiny realignments every day, and then all of a sudden in a year, in however long, in X amount of time, you find yourself somewhere completely fucking different. You have to have that intention of like where you want to be headed always, and like just wanting more for yourself ultimately, and not wanting to stop progression, because it's inevitable. Like things change and change and change until we die. It's like this situation, like I don't want it to go back to how I was before, to be honest with you. Like, if people go, I can't wait for everything to go back to normal, and I'm like, what the fuck was normal before though? Like, we all know how bad it was. Like, come on. I agree. So when shit changes, but my God, something had to fucking happen, because it weren't working. It weren't working for us as human beings. Like the way that everything was set up, we weren't thriving. You know, we weren't allowed room to thrive. That wouldn't have been good for profit. ever.
Yeah. I know you'd said that about that process of reconnecting with your inner child. That really interested me. What did that process look like? Was it obvious when you
You know what?
started exploring that?
It's been so important for me, that one. It came around at a time where I was like at my lowest, like probably at my lowest. And it was a few years ago, coming out of a divorce, coming out of like my entire world just like changing and shifting up, and everything that you think's real is false, and everything, you know, everything again, like now, everything flips on its head. And that happens a few times in our lives individually and as a collective, because we have to have these things for growth, you know?
Yeah.
But like I was at that point where I was just like, but what the fuck? I thought it was X and now it's Y, and what the fuck do I do now? And it was about, I was sat down by a professional, and they took me, I did like a, what do you call it? Hypnotherapy. It's a hypnotherapy session.
Yeah.
And they sort of lay you down, and I've done it a couple of times now. It's been really beneficial both times, but kind of walk you through a meditation where you're very much lucid, you're kind of falling asleep, but you're not asleep, you know, when you get to that really nice state.
Yeah.
And they're kind of carrying you along in a bit of a story. And it was like basically me walking up this nice hill, sitting under a shaded tree and meeting my inner child, like meeting my younger self.
Wow.
And it was like, what would you say to your younger self? Like, how would you console her? Like, what would you do for her right now? And like, it broke me down, like completely broke me down. Because all you want to do is like protect and love this like little pure being that's inside of all of us, you know? Like we started out like pretty pure. And then, like I say, you get all these layers and layers of conditioning placed upon you, and all these expectations, or all these just like, you get all these limits placed on you as a human the more and more we grow into sort of adolescence. And I think when you go back and you sort of are face to face with yourself, and particularly a younger self that you just want to love and protect and hold from like all the bad shit, you know, it really helped me discover a deeper level of self-love that I'd sort of lost sight of.
It's a very powerful image, that reconnecting with that younger self.
It's like your truest nature, like your young self. Like, we are so intuitive when we're children. We're so like, we're so in tune with the animals and the nature and every frequency around us. I mean, you know how like highly sort of emotional babies and stuff are, because we're just so soft, and so like everything's so, we're so absorbent. We're just little sponges, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's about like wringing out the fucking sponge and just like, woo, shit, shake that off. All that, a lot happened. A lot happened in those years, you know? Like, let's wash that shit off. Remember what made you happy. Like when everything else is stripped away, it's like, what made you happy when you were a child? And it's really, really simple things. Yeah, it's really cliche, but I found that like, that's what it always comes back to, you know, whether it's, a realization through psychedelics, or a beautiful connection that you've had, or like just some, you know, little light bulb moment. It's always back to love. It's always back to true love. And that's like, you know, it's almost like the thing that you can't put a name on, because as soon as you label it, people can corrupt it and they can turn it into Valentine's Day, cookie cutter, whatever people want it to be. Same with religion, you know, you can't, it's like inexplicable, but it's an emotion, and it's just a free flowing universal energy of unconditional love and support, ultimately, like that the nature has, you know, for everything around. It just gives, and it just gives freely, and it just keeps giving. And we wake up and there's just oxygen every day, and there's just abundance of food, and there's just abundance of sunlight, you know, and Mother Nature don't get all up in her feelings, and she just gives unconditionally.
Yeah.
And we are that down. We are just that unconditional source of energy and of love that wants to just give freely and exchange and like flow, you know?
Yeah.
It's like that torus field of energy. That's what we are. It's constantly replenishing and just expanding. But you know, people like to put limitations on that, because if we were aware of our true potential and how expansive we can truly become, then we really don't need a monetary system for starters.
Yeah, completely. And speaking of,
we don't need a lot of things.
Yeah. And speaking of love, you've got some pretty special people doing this with you on the land. How did you come to cross paths with them?
You know what? It's one of those. I've got a beautiful family that I'm working with right now, which has been beautiful because to have that mama energy around is really important.
Yeah.
But I think just surrounding yourself with people who have the same dreams and aspirations ultimately.
Yeah.
Everyone has something different to offer, you know, like where one person shows up and someone else might show up differently. And that's been something that you just have to, you know, that's what we do. It's about community. It's about sort of showing up in which areas you feel called to contribute,
Yeah.
and in which areas fuel your soul, you know. But
Yeah.
to be honest, it's harder than you'd think to get people to show up fully.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
But it's definitely 6 months down the line now. There are really, really key members to like the community showing up, and it's beautiful. Like, you know, you teach people how to build their own home and how to grow all their own food and how to sustain themselves, or how to transfer over to a different kind of energy where you're not having to pay that bill every month or whatever. It's really important for like organizations that really need it over here.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately it's like, I want that knowledge myself. I want, as a selfish Capricorn, I just want to utilize all this knowledge also. And as soon as I have it, then I can offer that outwardly to like everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. How have you found that the locals have responded to you? Because you've kind of like come in and you've taken on such a huge project, and you wouldn't be able to do it without their help, I'm assuming. So how has that been?
Yeah, I honestly cannot praise the people here enough.
Yeah.
So you have like the ladies, you call, if they're older than you call them Didi. And if they're younger than you call them Baini. And it's really nice. It's another reason why I really wanted to move to Nepal, because everybody here refers to each other as sister or brother. So like Didi is like older sister and Baini is like younger sister. So you meet a stranger in the street and they're already calling you sister.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Lush.
And it's like, in terms of spells and spelling and casting spells every day with our words, I just think it's a beautiful connection. Like, it's like, good morning, Didi. And like, I wouldn't walk down the street and be like, no, I mean, I did used to do that. And people looked at me like I was fucking mental in London. But here it's like a lot more socially acceptable to just be fucking happy and friendly, and everyone's absorbing the sun. People here they sort of treat, they say, which I don't know if I agree with it 100%, but they treat guests as God. Which is like, but they treat everyone, they treat each other as God, which is nice.
Yeah.
But in terms of, you know, we're coming in, we bring tourists, come in and bring economy here, and they really respect that and they really appreciate that. So people are very polite anyway and very accommodating, because it's a third world country technically, you know. And there's still some of that mindset thinking that we need the money and we need the tourism and we need this, when actually this place couldn't be like better off than the UK. It's like so naturally abundant. The elderly are so much healthier than the elderly that we have.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, everything's pretty wild, to be honest. It's really crazy how it's painted as if these countries have the short end of the stick when we do. Like, we really do. Like, you guys don't at all.
You find that the West are now looking to implementing Eastern practices, and more things like meditation have come to prominence in the last few years. But it's funny to see that the West is now looking to the East when we've got
always
ourselves.
Return to our truest natures, I think. These are the things that we've been doing for years. It's deep down and it's inherent. I also think, just to go back to the other question about the response as well, it's actually really interesting, because obviously when I walk down the street in, I don't know, anywhere in the West now, being like really heavily tattooed and a small female, it's not that out of the ordinary really anymore. So no one really bats an eye, and I never really thought about it. But moving here, I kind of got that thing from 10 years ago where everyone all of a sudden is like really quite shocked as well.
Really?
And bemused by it. And they really love it, and they ask for selfies and stuff a lot of the time, but it's really not that common out here for a female, because there is here, like everywhere to be honest, still that very dominant patriarchal energy of like, you know, that's very much role oriented, like the woman is like this, and then the male does this, and
Mhm.
while the women here are very, very physically tough and they do a lot of the hard manual labor, there is still that, unfortunately, like there is everywhere, the underlying suppression of the divine feminine ultimately.
Yeah.
So when they see young, heavily tattooed girl walking down the street, the DDs love it. And I think it's really good for a lot of the guys. Like they're not rude, they're not disrespectful about it, but you can tell it's a lot sometimes for them.
Yeah.
They're like, whoa, who the fuck is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Walking down out of the jungle, like my 3 dogs, and like a big stick, and they're like, whoa, what's this? But I do think that's another one of the reasons why I'm here. Like,
Yeah.
who's this bitch? It's important to be here.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be helping the youth here and women and children that do need support here, because it's just good to be the example, like without sounding full of myself. It's good to just be the example and to be strong for our sisters, to be that strength for yourself and for your sisters, and because it's fucking inspiring to do so, and it makes you feel good. So it's like, I feel powerful here. I feel really powerful because I'm in the middle of the jungle on my own, and I'm not scared of the fucking leopard, because why be? He's just nature, The DDs can handle it, and I can handle it. That's what keeps me going. I'm like, you guys can handle it. I can handle it.
Yeah.
We're doing it. We're all doing it.
Yeah, that's cool. And you mentioned psychedelics at some point. And was that something, did you have a significant sort of breakthrough spiritually, mentally, when after doing ayahuasca, for example, or was it kind of unlocking an extra layer of a path that you were already on?
I would agree. I would say yes to both. It was
cool.
So I did ayahuasca when I was like 19, 20, just before I got married. Can't quite remember how old I was, but I was young, and I'd waited and waited and waited, not done anything like that, just smoked weed, not really been a massive drug taker, but psychedelics was something that I've always been so interested in. And I'm really, really glad that I went straight to Mama Nature for those answers, and I really set a good intention. And I mean, we always get what we ask for every day. Like when you set an intention, when you wake up, whatever, we get what we ask for. And when we do something like this, and it becomes like a bit of a ritual, and you've got the intent to take something, to have an experience for with something, you can have like a certain situation in mind or something that you want clarity on. It's so incredibly powerful. It really, really is. It really helped me see clearly, again, just our truest natures, like what we are when everything else is stripped away. And I mean, I actually took some LSD on my land for the first time the other day, and I don't feel embarrassed talking about these sorts of things anymore, because it's just like such a socially acceptable thing at this point. And we've been sort of hiding it since the 70s and pretending that we don't still do that, but we do, because it's good for us. When it's respected, it's good for us. And the thing that I got, the message that I sort of got the whole way through, was just this overwhelming feeling of being so deeply held, like by the nature that surrounded me. It is. It's really beautiful, and it's not necessary to connect. Like psychedelics aren't necessary. You can do it through breathwork. You can do it through meditation. You can do it through whatever. There's a million ways to get there. But like ultimately, just going back to ourselves and back to the nature that surrounds us, because we are just nature herself. Like, that's where the answers lie. That's where all the answers have laid for me.
So after your experiences with psychedelics, did you have almost, I don't know, like you said about answers, but maybe a blueprint, practical things to implement into your life? Or was it more of just an awareness and an intuitive feeling within to kind of head in a certain direction? I don't know if that makes any sense.
I think that's what it was, yeah. It's like a slow unraveling. I think once you've had new realizations, so once you're like, oh fuck, that doesn't serve me actually, and I think this serves me a bit more, and I probably shouldn't. We have realizations. We have realizations every day. If we're open to them, where it's like you could be progressing. Like we repeat patterns all the time. So I think that psychedelics are a really good way to sort of take a step back and look at ourselves from a different perspective, like without being so in ourselves. We can sort of look at our patterns and then start breaking them down, and we're like sort of letting go of things that no longer serve us anymore. So for me, it was like I took the ayahuasca and then I actually didn't feel that great afterwards. Like you feel good for a while, but then it's like, what the fuck now? Like what? And now what? You know what I mean? Like, cool, so we fucked the earth up, now what do I fucking do? Just go back to my life then, shall I? And just like carry on as normal. And that's kind of what it felt like for a minute. But then again, like I said, it's about if you've got that faith that there is more and that there is something higher that you want to work towards, then it's like a slow unraveling. Like you just realize, or I just realized anyway, I don't know about other people, but like 2 years later, wow, shit, I'm actually somewhere really, really different. And I'm going to continue to go down this path because it looks a lot better than where I was before, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not about perfection. It's not about waking up tomorrow and doing the breath work and the meditation and eating raw vegan and doing all this. Like, it's just literally about moving deeper into alignment with things that serve us. So it can be anything from like disconnecting from relationships that no longer really serve us to changing our eating habits, or like actually getting out of bed. It's basically making yourself uncomfortable. That's what I've found. Growth happens when you're uncomfortable.